I, 28F, and my ex-fiancé Bradley, 30M, were together for nearly 6 years before I caught him cheating with my stepsister Julie, 26F, on our engagement night. I need to provide some background so everyone understands the complete situation. My mom passed away when I was 12, and my dad raised me alone for 3 years before meeting Sarah, Julie's mom. Sarah was divorced and had full custody of Julie. When they started dating, my dad tried really hard to make Julie and me become friends since we were close in age. At first, I was resistant because I wasn't ready for a new family, but Julie was actually really nice to me. After my dad and Sarah got married, Julie and I became pretty close. We shared a room, borrowed each other's clothes, and told each other secrets. She was always the prettier one, tall, blonde, athletic, while I was more bookish and focused on academics. But it never bothered me because we each had our own strengths. Julie was like the sister I never had. I met Bradley during my sophomore year of college. He was a senior, and we met at a campus coffee shop where I worked part-time. He would come in every day, order the same drink, and we'd talk for hours during my breaks. After 2 weeks of this, he finally asked me out. We clicked instantly. He was smart, funny, ambitious, and treated me like I was the most special person in his world. After Bradley graduated, he got a job in the same city and waited for me to finish college. We moved in together after my graduation when we both had stable jobs. Those were some of the happiest years of my life. We had our routines, Sunday brunches, weekend hikes, game nights with friends. Bradley got along great with my family too. Julie especially seemed to like him, but I thought she was just happy for me. Last year, after 6 years together, Bradley proposed. We were at the Skyline, this fancy restaurant overlooking the city. He had arranged for the chef to bring out a special dessert with the ring. I was completely surprised and said yes immediately. We decided to have an engagement party at our house the following weekend. The party was everything I dreamed of. All our friends and family were there. Bradley's parents flew in specially for it. Julie helped me decorate the house and even made her famous cocktails. I remember feeling so grateful that my stepsister was also my best friend and was so supportive of my happiness. Everything was perfect until around 11 p.m. The party was still going strong downstairs, but I needed to use the bathroom. The downstairs one was occupied, so I went upstairs. As I walked past the guest bedroom, I heard muffled voices. The door wasn't completely closed, and through the gap, I saw something that would haunt me forever. Bradley had Julie pressed against the wall, kissing her neck while she ran her hands through his hair. Her dress was pushed up, and his shirt was unbuttoned. They were so lost in each other they didn't even notice me at first. I must have made some sound because Julie suddenly opened her eyes and saw me. She pushed Bradley away, but the damage was done. I ran downstairs, barely able to see through my tears. Bradley came running after me, calling my name. Some guests noticed the commotion, but I couldn't face anyone. I grabbed my purse and car keys and drove away. I could see Bradley in my rearview mirror, standing in the driveway, but I didn't stop. I checked into a hotel nearby and turned off my phone. I couldn't stop crying and throwing up. The image of them together kept playing in my head. I took a sleeping pill from my emergency purse stash and tried to sleep, praying this was just a nightmare. When I turned on my phone the next morning, I had 47 missed calls and over 100 texts. Bradley's messages made me sick. He wrote that he was sorry I found out this way, but he and Julie had been having feelings for each other for months. He said he proposed to me because he thought it would make his feelings for Julie go away, but seeing her at the engagement party made him realize he couldn't fight it anymore. Julie's messages were even worse. She wrote about how she and Bradley had been fighting their attraction, but they couldn't deny their feelings anymore. She said they never meant to hurt me, but they were in love. She actually wrote that maybe this was for the best because now I could find someone who loved me the way Bradley loved her. I stayed at the hotel for 2 more days, calling in sick to work. My best friend Emma brought me clean clothes and stayed with me, but I barely spoke. I knew I had to go home eventually to get my things. I waited until I knew Bradley would be at work and drove home. To my surprise, my dad's and Bradley's cars were in the driveway. When I walked in, I found my dad, Sarah, Julie, and Bradley in the living room. Julie was crying on the couch while Sarah comforted her. Bradley sat nearby, looking guilty but not guilty enough. Instead of asking what happened or showing any concern for me, my dad started talking about how we needed to handle this maturely. Sarah chimed in saying that while the situation wasn't ideal, we couldn't help who we fell in love with. Julie, still crying, said she never meant for this to happen but she and Bradley were soulmates. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own family was defending them. When I got angry and said they were betraying me, Sarah had the nerve to say I was being dramatic and needed to understand that sometimes life doesn't go as planned. My dad actually suggested that once I calmed down, we could all sit down and figure out how to move forward as a family. That's when I realized I had lost not just my fiancé, but my entire family. They cared more about protecting Julie's feelings than acknowledging how she had destroyed my life. The last straw was when Julie, still sniffling, said she hoped I could forgive her someday because she missed her sister. I went upstairs and packed as much as I could fit in my suitcases and car. As I was leaving, my dad tried to stop me, saying I was overreacting and would regret cutting off my family. I looked him in the eye and told him he had chosen his stepdaughter over his own daughter, and I would never forgive any of them. That was the last time I spoke to them. I blocked their numbers and social media, though I kept my accounts public so they could see I was doing fine without them. Some mutual friends told me Bradley and Julie moved in together within a week and were openly dating. They even kept my engagement ring, which was Bradley's grandmother's ring that she had specifically asked him to give to me. Update 1 first, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments on my original post. The overwhelming response helped me stay strong in my decision to cut off my toxic family. After I left that day, I stayed with my best friend Emma for a few weeks. She has a spare room in her apartment and refused to let me stay in a hotel. Those first few weeks were a blur. I barely ate or slept, and I kept having nightmares about that night. Emma practically force-fed me and made sure I at least tried to maintain a normal routine. The hardest part was going back to work. Bradley and I worked for different companies but in the same business district. I was terrified of running into him during lunch hours or coffee breaks. I started taking different routes to work and changed my usual coffee shop. I even started bringing lunch from home to avoid going out. It felt like I was the one hiding when I hadn't done anything wrong. 3 weeks after moving in with Emma, I was scrolling through our company's internal job board when I saw an opening in our London office. They needed someone with exactly my qualifications for a senior position. It felt like a sign. I had always wanted to work abroad, but Bradley had been resistant to the idea because he didn't want to leave his family. Well, that wasn't an issue anymore. I applied immediately and had a video interview the next day. They were impressed with my experience and offered me the position with a significant pay raise. The only catch was they needed me to start within a month. I accepted without hesitation. When I told Emma about my decision to move to London, she cried but said she understood. She helped me plan everything, finding an apartment, arranging for my stuff to be shipped, and even connected me with her cousin who lived in London. The day before I was supposed to leave, Sarah showed up at Emma's apartment. She had gotten the address from a mutual friend who thought she was trying to make amends. Instead, Sarah started berating me for being selfish and running away from my problems. She said Julie was devastated that I was leaving the country without even saying goodbye. I lost it at that point. I told Sarah that Julie didn't get to be devastated after what she did. Sarah then dropped the bomb that Julie and Bradley were already talking about marriage. Apparently, they wanted to wait to announce it until things settled down, but they were sure they were meant to be together. Sarah actually said this was proof that their love was real and not just a fling. Emma, bless her heart, stepped in and asked Sarah to leave before I completely broke down. After she left, I cried for hours. Not because I missed Bradley, but because I finally accepted that my family would never acknowledge how much they had hurt me. The next day, I boarded my flight to London without telling anyone else. I started my new life with just 2 suitcases and a broken heart, but also with determination to succeed. The first few months in London were challenging but liberating. I threw myself into work, often staying at the office until late. My colleagues were welcoming, and I made some good friends. I even joined a gym and started taking boxing classes to channel my anger productively. My dad tried reaching out multiple times through email since I had blocked his number. His messages started with anger about how I was being childish by running away. Then they turned to guilt-tripping, saying Sarah had been diagnosed with depression because of our estrangement. The latest ones were about how much he missed his daughter and how we needed to fix our family. I didn't respond to any of them. I knew if I opened that door even slightly, they would try to manipulate me again. Plus, through mutual friends, I heard that Julie and Bradley were still living in our old house, the house I had helped furnish and decorate. They were even using the wedding registry I had created. The final straw came 6 months after I left. Julie and Bradley got married in a big ceremony at the same venue Bradley and I had booked for our wedding. My dad walked Julie down the aisle wearing the same suit he had bought to walk me down the aisle. They even used some of the ideas from my wedding Pinterest board that Julie had access to. Many relatives who knew the truth refused to attend the wedding. My mom's sister, Aunt Carol, called to tell me she and her family had declined the invitation because they couldn't support such betrayal. But my dad and Sarah acted like everything was perfect. They even had the nerve to send me a wedding invitation with a note saying it would mean a lot to Julie if her sister was there to celebrate her special day. I blocked their email addresses after that. I finally accepted that these people would never understand the depth of their betrayal. They would always paint me as the dramatic one who couldn't accept true love or whatever nonsense they were telling themselves. It's been a few months since then. I've been promoted twice at work and am now leading my own team. I bought a beautiful apartment in London and have started dating casually. I keep my social media public and post regularly about my success and happiness, not out of pettiness but to show myself how far I've come. Some people might think running away to another country was extreme, but it was the best decision I could have made. Sometimes you need to completely remove yourself from toxic situations to heal properly. Update 2. Just when I thought I had finally moved on with my life, my past came crashing back. Yesterday morning, while I was having my coffee before work, I received an email from Julie from an address I hadn't blocked. The subject line read, "Please help, urgent family emergency." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was long and desperate. Julie wrote that she and Bradley were in serious financial trouble. Apparently, about a year ago, they started a luxury wedding planning business together. Julie had always been good at organizing parties, and Bradley quit his job to handle the business side. According to the email, they invested all their savings and took out several loans to get the business started. They even convinced my dad and Sarah to remortgage their house to help them. For the first few months, everything seemed fine. They got a few clients through their social circle and thought they were on their way to success. But then things started going wrong. A few big clients canceled last minute and demanded their deposits back. Their inexperience led to some major mistakes that resulted in negative reviews. Soon, word spread in their social circle about their unprofessional service. The business started losing money rapidly. They tried to save it by taking more loans, maxing out their credit cards, and borrowing from everyone who would lend them money. Nothing helped. Now they're drowning in debt. Julie mentioned they owe over $200,000 to various banks and private lenders. They're about to lose their house, my old house, ironically, and the debt collectors are calling day and night. Julie wrote that she knew she had no right to ask me for help after everything that happened, but they desperately needed $50,000 to at least keep the debt collectors at bay while they tried to sell the business. She actually had the audacity to write that this could be my chance to prove I had grown as a person and moved past our unfortunate history. She said helping them now would show that family bonds were stronger than past mistakes. I read the email 3 times, feeling a mix of disbelief and bitter amusement. After I didn't respond for a few hours, Bradley started calling me from different numbers. When I finally answered one, thinking it might be a work call, his voice brought back all the anger I thought I had moved past. Bradley sounded desperate but still managed to be condescending. He said he knew things ended badly between us, but surely I was mature enough now to help family in need. He actually said I owed them this help because Julie was still my sister, regardless of what happened. Then he tried to sweeten the deal by promising they would pay me back double the amount once their business recovered. I laughed and told him that the only thing I owed them was the middle finger. I reminded him how he and Julie had betrayed me, how my family had defended their affair, and how they had used my wedding plans for their own ceremony. Then I hung up and blocked all the new numbers they were using. But they didn't stop there. Julie started emailing me from new addresses every few hours. Each email got more desperate than the last. In one, she claimed debt collectors had threatened them. In another, she said they were surviving on one meal a day. The latest one said they might have to declare bankruptcy if I didn't help. Sarah also tried reaching out through LinkedIn, saying she knew I was doing well financially. Apparently they'd been stalking my social media, and begging me to at least talk to Julie. She wrote that Julie was having anxiety attacks about their situation and hadn't slept properly in weeks. I haven't responded to any of them. Part of me feels a twisted satisfaction knowing they're struggling while I'm thriving. The other part is angry that they have the nerve to ask me for help after everything they did. They made their choices 3 years ago when they betrayed me. They chose to start a business they knew nothing about. They chose to take loans they couldn't repay. Now they have to face the consequences of their choices. Some mutual friends have reached out saying I should help because $50,000 isn't much money for me now. I do make a very good salary, and it would be the mature thing to do. But I didn't get where I am by bailing out people who stabbed me in the back. I've blocked all their new contact attempts and I'm documenting everything in case I need legal help to keep them away. They made their bed when they chose to betray me. Now they can lie in it. Update 3. Things have escalated dramatically since my last update. Yesterday morning, my apartment security called to inform me that someone claiming to be my sister was causing a scene in the lobby. I knew immediately it was Julie, though I had no idea how she got my address. When I went down, Julie looked nothing like the polished, perfect sister I remembered. Her designer clothes were replaced with worn-out jeans and a faded sweater. Her perfectly maintained blonde hair was tied in a messy bun, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. As soon as she saw me, she burst into tears. She fell to her knees in the lobby, creating such a scene that other residents stopped to stare. She begged me to help them, saying they had lost everything. Apparently, the bank had finally foreclosed on their house, and all their possessions had been seized to pay their debts. Julie said they were sleeping on my dad and Sarah's couch because they had nowhere else to go. Their cars had been repossessed, and Bradley's parents had refused to help them anymore. She claimed that debt collectors were threatening legal action, and Bradley was talking about declaring bankruptcy. When I remained unmoved, Julie's tears turned to anger. She started screaming about how petty and vindictive I was being. She actually said I should be over the Bradley thing by now since it had been 3 years. She said I was being cruel by watching my sister suffer when I had the means to help. I called security and had her escorted out. As they were taking her away, she shouted that I would regret being so heartless to family. The whole scene was embarrassing, but it only reinforced my decision not to help them. Later that night, my dad called from a new number. He was crying, something I had never heard before. He said Julie and Bradley were sleeping in his den because all the rooms in his house were filled with the furniture they managed to save from their house. He said they could barely afford to eat, and Bradley was working at a local bar to make ends meet. Then he tried to guilt-trip me by saying this wasn't how he raised me. He said my mom would be disappointed to see me being so cruel to family. That was the last straw. I reminded him how he had chosen Julie over me when she betrayed me. I told him he lost the right to talk about my mom or how I was raised when he defended the people who hurt me most. Before hanging up, he said something that actually made me laugh. He claimed that by helping Julie and Bradley, I could get closure, and we could all be a family again. As if I would want to be part of a family that thought betrayal was acceptable as long as it was done out of love. I've already contacted a lawyer about getting a restraining order against Julie. I'm also looking into moving to a more secure apartment building with better security. Some colleagues suggested I transfer to our Singapore office for a while until things calm down, and I'm seriously considering it. Sarah has been posting vague, guilt-tripping messages on Facebook about how money changes people and makes them forget their family. Several relatives have reached out saying I should help because family is family. But these are the same people who attended Julie and Bradley's wedding without a second thought about how it would hurt me. I've worked hard to build my life and success. I refuse to let these people guilt me into bailing them out of their bad decisions. They chose each other over me 3 years ago. Now they can face the consequences of their choices together.